Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we have a special 2 parts Let's Talk Lore that will cover Zhang Lu, who is definitely one of the lesser known but extremely impactful and influential characters during the Three Kingdoms period. In this part 1, we'll kick things off by first looking at his portrayal in the game Total War Three Kingdoms, then we'll spend most of the episode looking back at his family to find meaningful connections to gain a better understanding of Zhang Lu's life. Tomorrow, in part 2 of this mini-series, we'll dive deeper into Zhang Lu's life and discuss lasting impacts of his legacy before finishing by reviewing his portrayal in the game once again to check for deviations from history. So, in the game Total War Three Kingdoms, Zhang Lu leads a non-playable faction that starts the game in the commandery of Hanzhong in the western regions of the map located here. As a character, Zhang Lu is a generic champion with a unique background called Celestial Master. This background grants him 10 points of expertise, 15 points of resolve, and 5 points of authority. But most importantly, it grants him a leadership bonus of 100% food production faction-wide. Furthermore, his AI personality trait in the game is peaceful, which means he has no desire to expand or maintain strong armies and tries to avoid conflicts. And his traits are aesthetic, kind, and superstitious. We'll review all these elements for historical accuracy at the end of the series, but for the time being, let's give Zhang Lu a proper historical introduction. Zhang Lu, surname Zhang, named Lu, courtesy name or style name Gong Qi, born to father Zhang Heng and mother Lady Lu in an unknown birth year. Zhang Lu comes from a very, very well-known family. His grandfather, Zhang Daoling, is the founder of Taoism, one of the only major religions of the world to originate from China. His great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, or basically 12 generations above, was the famous Zhang Liang, who is known today as Mou Sheng, or the god of strategy. So in order to better tell our story of Zhang Lu, we are going to jump back more than 400 years before he was ever born to tell a few stories about this 12th generation ancestor, Zhang Liang. Born around 250 BC, Zhang Liang was born to a nobleman's family in the smallest of the 7 kingdoms during the Warring Kingdoms period of Chinese history, predating the Qin dynasty, in the kingdom of Han, shown here in pink. His grandfather was the prime minister to 3 generations of past kings, and his father followed suit by becoming the prime minister to the late king and the current king in the kingdom of Han. But unfortunately, before Zhang Liang would come of age and inherit his family's business of becoming the prime minister, the kingdom of Han, being the unlucky neighbor to the ambitious kingdom of Qin, was the first to fall in Qin's conquest to unite China under the rule of the first emperor Qin Shi Huang. So to avenge his family and kingdom, Zhang Liang spent what remained of his family's wealth to recruit and train assassins as he targeted the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, who had a habit of touring all over China to show off his presence to all his newly united and conquered citizens. So Zhang Liang saw this as the perfect opportunity to strike, and handpicked a strong man to wield a heavy iron mallet weighing over 60 kilograms in an effort to smash Qin Shi Huang's personal carriage in an ambush. On the day of the assassination, Zhang Liang's intel stated that Qin Shi Huang would be riding in the only carriage drawn by 6 horses, while all other government officials accompanying him would be in 4 horse-drawn carriages. But when Qin Shi Huang's entourage entered the ambush zone, Zhang Liang soon realized the intel was faulty, and there were actually 36 different carriages, all drawn by 4 horses. Not wanting to waste this rare opportunity, Zhang Liang launched the ambush anyways, and commanded his assassins to target the most decorative carriage in the pack. Due to Zhang Liang's expert planning, the attack was a success and the carriage was smashed to pieces, killing all those inside. But unfortunately, Qin Shi Huang was not in that carriage. It turns out, After surviving countless attempts on his life, Qin Shi Huang had purposely designed a decorative carriage to use as bait, while he switched carriages every day to prevent being assassinated. So the attempt ended in failure, but Zhang Liang was able to slip away and remain uncaptured despite Qin Shi Huang's best effort to arrest him. Tales of this brazen attack soon spread throughout the land and quickly made Zhang Liang famous as the assassin who got away. But Zhang Liang's reckless attempt to avenge his family and kingdom through assassination also caught the eyes of someone else. As one day, when he was crossing a bridge, a poorly dressed elder walked up to him and immediately kicked off his own sandals into the water below. He then rudely yelled out to Zhang Liang, demanding him to help fetch them. Confused, Zhang Liang hesitated for a moment before diving down to fetch the sandals, out of respect for the elder's age. But when he returned the sandals to the elder instead sat down, stuck out his feet, and signaled Zhang Liang to help him put on the sandals. Now, had Zhang Liang not gone through the suffering of losing his kingdom and family, he probably would have thrown the sandals at the old man's face out of pride. But due to the tenacity he acquired from the harsh realities of life, he was able to swallow his pride and kneel down to carefully help the old man put on his sandals. But instead of a thank you, the old man simply laughed and walked away after Zhang Liang put on his shoes. Still confused by this whole episode, Zhang Liang stood still on the bridge as he stared at the back of the elder as the elder walked away. After a few moments, the elder turned around and ran back to Zhang Liang and told him, "I guess there's still hope for you," and informed him to return to the bridge at midnight in 5-day time. 5 days passed, and at the crack of dawn, Zhang Liang returns to the bridge. But since he was late, the elder chided him and told him to try again in another 5 days. Another 5 days passed, and this time Zhang Liang arrives in the middle of the night. But the elder was still a step ahead of him and told him to try again in 5 days. This time, 15 days after their first meeting, Zhang Liang decides to just wait on the bridge from the night before. And sure enough, this time the elder is satisfied and presents him with a scroll. Then the elder tells him that in 10 years' time, chaos will once again consume China. And if he studies the scrolls carefully, he will be able to return peace to the land. With that said, the elder takes his leave, and Zhang Liang opens the scroll to discover that it was a war manual written by the legendary Duke of the Yellow Rock, who turns out to be that elder himself. Now, this story has a connection to the game, as we have the ancillary item, the 3 strategies of the Duke of the Yellow Rock in the game. And this is the same book that Zhang Liang received from the author himself. Now, this war manual is on par with the more famous Sun Tzu's Art of War, and is classified in the Song Dynasty as one of the 7 greatest war manuals in Chinese history. As we can see that this item is also part of a set bonus called the Hand of the King, which is a very fitting name, as that will be the role Zhang Liang will play for Liu Bang as they bring an end to the Qin dynasty and herald in 400 years of Han dynasty, which will ultimately end with the 3 kingdoms. As you see, it all connects. And even more interesting is that it was Zhang Liang who advised Liu Bang to establish himself as a contender for the throne by building his base of power in the Hanzhong commandery, which is the same commandery that Zhang Lu will one day reside in. And because Liu Bang took this advice and made Hanzhong his base of power, he will eventually become named Han Wang, or King of Han, which will transition into the name of the dynasty that he establishes. And this impact is even reflected in Chinese society today, as over 92% of China's population, or 19% of world population, belongs to the Han ethnicity group, which originate from the Han dynasty. Now, I could probably do at least 30 more episodes just on the life of Zhang Liang and Liu Bang and the establishment of the Han dynasty, but our mini-series here is about Zhang Lu. So let's jump back to Zhang Lu's grandfather and the founder of Taoism, Zhang Daoling. Zhang Daoling was born in February 22nd in the year 32 with the name of Zhang Ling, And because of his family name, he landed a comfortable government job by his early 20s. But when he was 25, he got bored with the job and resigned to travel the land, read classical literature, and meditate. He was particularly interested in the issue of life and death, and even dabbled in alchemy in search of everlasting life. Now, when I mention reading classical literature here, most people, especially those unfamiliar with Chinese philosophy, might immediately assume that I'm talking about the writings of Confucius. And indeed, Zhang Lu read his fair share of Confucian literature, but he lost interest in most of them, as they rarely dealt with his obsession of life and death. Instead, the book he fixated on was Dao De Jing, written by Lao Tzu, a contemporary of Confucius. Now, Dao De Jing is a book of philosophy that deals with four main topics, and they are self-cultivation of the mind, the governance of the country, the proper use of military, and the way to achieve a long life. So Zhang Lu pored over this text and lived his life according to its recommendations in an effort to extend his own life. And by the year 89, when he was already 57 years old, the emperor personally requested him to take on a key government job, but he refused and said that a man is only on this earth for a mere 100 years. Time is short, and he would rather live a peaceful and quiet life in the countryside than taking on a job in the noisy and crowded capital. So he moved his family to a mountain called Longhu Shan, where he would practice alchemy for the next 3 years in an effort to create a medicine to help extend his life. After 3 years, he left the mountain with the medicine that he cooked up through alchemy and traveled to the land of Shu, where he will establish Taoism and spread its influence throughout the Shu lands for the next 50 years. Now, in the beginning of Taoism, the name of their sect was called Zheng Yi Dao. The requirement to join Zheng Yi Dao was that the followers have to give Zhang Lu 5 pecks of rice. So later, many people refer to this sect as the way of the 5 peck of rice, or the way of the celestial master, as Zhang Lu changed his name to Zhang Daoling and referred to himself as Tian Shi, or celestial master. Now, legend goes that in the year 142, or when Zhang Daoling was already 110 years old, Lao Tzu, the author of Dao De Jing, who already became a god, came down from the heavens to bless Zhang Daoling himself, and Zhang Daoling would continue to spread Taoism through the Shu lands all the way till his passing at the age of 123. Afterward, the title of Celestial Master or Tian Shi would be passed on to his son, Zhang Heng, who after his death passed on this title to his son and the main character of our lore, Zhang Lu. And this is exactly where we'll continue in the next part of our mini-series, as we'll finally look at Zhang Lu's life and his impact during and beyond the Three Kingdoms era. So thank you guys for watching, and see you all next time. Bye!